Good afternoon. Great to be back on the stage again in the afternoon, and this time in the presence of very eminent personalities. Two of them to my left and right are gurus and former vice chancellors. Anoop Ambika, ever since his last Saturday's Indian Express interview, has been a rising sage of our times. Plus, it's great to have two students also to share their ideas. I'm going to start with Dr. Kuncheria, sir, so that you can set the context very correctly as we were having the discussion here. So, obviously, as he pointed out, it's very incorrect to synonymously use ChatGPT along with generative AI. Generative AI offers incredibly immense possibilities as well as potential threats when we think about it. So, sir, if you can set the context of the panel discussion in that aspect, we can take it from there.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Arun, and my fellow panelists and the participants of the International Conference on AI and the Future of Education. Probably, I think I'm an odd man out of the group because I don't have any computer science background. So I don't want much to talk about the technology of AI, which has already been set in during the last 2 days, wherein several papers have been presented, and I wish to thank the organizers for inviting me to be part of this panel discussion. Now, I think, just before this, we were just chatting, and then I found that everybody is afraid of ChatGPT. Are you? I don't know. So the discussions were centered around ChatGPT, which is going to be a threat in education, where probably everybody is of the opinion that the students will write their assignments using ChatGPT, right? That's a threat. I also agree. But is it, what is actually AI, and what are its uses, and what are its ill effects, or what are its pros and cons? This is what actually we should discuss, and we should not be carried away by just the bad impacts of ChatGPT. See, basically, just now we were listening to Dr. Ashraf. I was here, so that's the last slide. I just would like to start from there. Ethics, the last slide which he has shown. If you have the ethics, this is the first point which I just wanted to make. If you can't be an ethical culture, if that can be created in the academic institutions, and nothing beyond that. See, you go to an American university, you are given a question paper, and you sign a honor code. You take the question paper home, and the honor code is that I will not copy it from anywhere. I sign it and then give it. I come back. I do my assignment or test paper. It's a home test or whatever it is. I submit it. If I am caught, I'm out of the university. That's the punishment, nothing questions asked. But here, probably next day you will have a big strike. No, I'm not joking. Yeah, today also, just before that, I was just watching the TV where even in the school students, senior school students beating a 11th standard student and happening. Is it, so how is the, what is education? That's basically what we have to understand. Basically, what is that we are trying to give in the education? Because since we are talking about AI in the context of higher education, I would like to say that this is where we have got to really work towards how to create the next generation, how do you build the next generation with ethics rooted in them? And how can your technology works in that direction? How can the AI can be used for that? This is where you have got to think. See, today, when you talk about I would say that this is a tool, I don't know whether it's a tool or it's a disruptive technology. I would say I will call it as a disruptive technology. Just like we had the internet, it is going to be the next generation where if it is not used properly, it could even lead to the extinction of the humankind. It could be possible. That is something which can happen. We may talk about displacement of jobs. Actually, there are a lot of things which happen. See, if anybody of you read The Economist, 2-3 weeks back, I think, or 3 or 4 weeks back, there was an article on how the AI is going to be utilized for the 2024 elections in US, Britain, Italy, India, Indonesia, and a few countries. How AI is going to be in place for the general elections of these countries which are going to be. See, this is where, this ChatGPT is nothing. I would say that is only a tip of the iceberg of whatever it is, right? So, but coming back, I would say that education means it's not the classroom teaching alone. It is basically, that is where probably this seminar being arranged by the government of Kerala to benefit the education, the community of Kerala, we should focus on education which is nothing but research. You have to, this is where we lack today. No research happening. Few research happening in some institutions, we cannot deny. That's good. That's to be encouraged further. See, today, the best thing which is happening is how many of you are, you have a community here of researchers. How many of you are making use of AI? Probably some of you would have used it like ANN. Is artificial neural network which you have been using for the last 20 years, right? It's nothing but an AI, right? I agree. Do you agree with me? Yes, you have been using it. See, I would say that you are talking about ChatGPT, but there is there are a lot of things which you can do it. See, today, the development of new medicines, antibiotics. See, recently it has been reported that 2 antibiotics have been developed by MIT based on AI modeling, wherein you will find out what are, it's a modeling technique which you will have to make use of it to find out whether this component of that particular antibiotic will kill this particular bacteria or, right? I think that's right. So, how can we employ the artificial intelligence or whatever it is? But basically, when you talk about ChatGPT or the large language models, I would say one thing. This is where this community will have to understand. See, when I was doing research, very difficult to get a paper. I have to travel from here to Delhi to get a paper. No Xerox, nothing available. The paper is not available here. You have to depend on several people. But today, probably you can make use of this generative AI to find out what is the status of research, review of literature on a particular topic. That is the best advantage of the whole thing. See, rather than utilizing the advantage of that, we are only worried about the ill effects of it, which can only happen. See, today, we have policemen. Why policemen are required? Because theft is happening or illegal activities are happening and things like that. How can we create, again I'm coming to that point. How can you create the next generation with ethics is something which we have to discuss also this in this context. So ethics only can happen, I mean, make things to work in the right direction. So if you take that, it's actually what is called literature-based discovery, LBD. This is what I was referring, where we can make use of the literature-based discovery. This is an area where our community will have to work. We have to get into the research in the earnest sense. So this literature-based discovery is something which this large language models or the chat GPT could help you to really identify that. See how this AI can turbocharge scientific progress and lead to a golden age of discoveries. That's what we have to discuss. How are we going to develop an era of discovery age? How can we make use of AI? Because that's what I was trying to tell. See what actually the technology helps you to today is to reach the outcome very fast. That is what you can reach very fast. The time required to develop something is less, and that is the technology or the AI which we will have to make advantage of that.
Same thing about setting the context of generative AI and education.
Thank you, Dr. Arun. Professor Kuncheria has put in the right perspective by bringing in the positive notes on generative AI, on research. Now let us look at education. It is something that which all of us fear, and for me, I feel that we are very early to make conclusive decisions on these foundational models and large language models, because it has not even been a year since this has come, and every week this is changing all over the world, how it is used. And we keep seeing reports from UNESCO wondering what is going to happen when schools reopen, when ChatGPT is broadly used by students in their early education, and how teachers and schools should regulate that. Everywhere, in all segments of education, this is being widely discussed. But setting all that aside, let us also see and look at the points where, or the aspects, or the positive segments where this can be rightfully used. If we look at teaching, we can have very interesting foundational models for right teaching once we put the ideas into right perspective. Then for assessment of students, how can we have learner-specific assessment depending on how students perform? How can we change the assessment models? These are all some areas which we can concentrate on in the development of foundation models. And it is also interesting to see that these foundational models can be domain-specific as well as be generic. Though this itself, the development of these kind of models itself opens up several avenues for researchers. So that the researchers which can contribute to key aspects of education, like teaching, learning, for students for learning, how can they depend on such systems which help them in personalized learning nowadays. We speak about personalized learning, being able to learn according to the pace of the students, according to the talents, and according to the interests of the students. So these are all very interesting avenues one can think of, and we can develop such systems for various segments in education. And we I always wonder how the way young children learn. They don't give importance to spelling because they say once we type, it automatically comes. So that is a shift that is happening in learning. That is happening everywhere. For grammar, the right grammar is put. Then how do we change our educational system for this? So it should never replace the principles of learning. That is how we should also look at ChatGPT. It is not basically getting away with the principles which we are learning, but what we can build on the principles. See, there's no, we write codes for multiplication, but it is not by replacing the principles of learning fundamental multiplication. Maybe for large multiplications we can use automated programs and algorithms, and this is how it develops. Any technology that has assisted us in learning in any field, engineering or school or anything, this has happened this way. It's not by completely replacing, but how can we have effective systems? This is true with ChatGPT also. If you're doing something like Professor Kuncheria put it, it is like you are doing literature survey. How wisely you can use such models to have the kind of literature that you're looking for. How can you have curated literature for the purpose you are searching for and for the specific goals you are trying to achieve? This is what we need to take as a principle when we are opening to such new technologies, and LLMs are not exceptions to that. And foundational models have very interesting things for us to give. If we take any segment, not only education, in research, in healthcare. I remember the previous speaker, Dr. Ashraf, around 9 years back, we were just discussing how the clinical diagnosis is going to change if some intelligent systems are able to extract intelligence from huge databases and then give recommendations for medical diagnosis. This happens to any field of knowledge. Such systems which can give recommendations by analyzing huge volumes of data, transforming wisdom and intelligence out of it. So that is where I would like to put in. And also another threat that I want to point out here is regarding the copyright issues and the regulations that need to come in the context of ChatGPT. Some of the problems which we haven't solved are there, like cybersecurity, which is not completely being solved as users from our side. When systems like ChatGPT come overlaying those, it is going to be hazardous, and it becomes simply out of control. I would like to stop here and let us see how.
Thank you, ma'am. I think one of the things that we discussed in the morning is what you touched upon, which is personalized learning. Todd Ross had a book out called The End of Average a few years ago, where he was talking about how all our education system seems to be designed for the average student who doesn't exist. And then we create exams for them. But he was asking, where is the adjustable seat in the classroom, where every student can adjust according to his or her attitude and aptitude. So I think one of the things that generative AI helps us to do is that, create a personalized education. Last week, Forbes magazine had an article, again a shout out to Texas A&M, which said the future of AI is a girl called Hannah Ward. So she had taken, one of the Forbes magazine's writers had taken 120 interviews that he had conducted, and he was wanting to find out 5 or 10 major trends based on the interviews. And this girl, who is a second-year engineering student from Texas A&M, it took her 30 hours along with generative AI to sit down and figure out which are the 5 biggest trends. So that kind of assimilation is what Kuncheria sir was also saying. It has become very easy to assimilate literature survey based on literature, get out information and knowledge that we are looking for. The data is out there. This one can really help. Now I'll turn to Anoop. Last week in the interview, and which has gone viral, where he mentioned about his own experience in TKM Engineering College, where the first assignment was probably the last assignment that he did. And after that, it all became burger and samosa and then free assignment delivery by few of the studious girls in the classroom. This is again going back to the ethics that Kuncheria sir was talking about. So the unhappy situation in higher education, how can the machine intelligence help us overcome this?
I'm not an academician, rather I'm more of a technologist or a manager, if I may say so. So I'm not probably the academic angle of what I say might not be right. Many people, including my son, said that you shouldn't be speaking like this on TV. You know, you you kind of you know, bring down my esteem in front of my friends. So, but one thing that has changed ever since the chat GPT. I mean, the most used, a guy called me a few days back and said that, you know, I want to do, he asked me, like, are you familiar with chat GPT? I said, yes, I'm familiar with chat GPT. By the way, how many of you know the full form of GPT? Yeah, I mean, at least let's have a takeaway today. What is it? Okay. Pre-trained transformers. So it's called generative pre-trained transformers. And GPT-1, I think, came around probably 2017-18 timeframes, and then transformed itself into GPT-4, which came out in 2023. There is a history which I can talk about. And I'm going to say that because how it is suddenly useful is what I want to talk about. So the whole exercise of GPT, or what we now call as generative AI, started with, at least to my understanding, Stanford actually put together a list of questions and answers called SQUAD. Stanford Question Answer Dataset is what it was called. And they published it to the world and said that, why don't you build an AI model wherein you will be able to ask a question and the system is going to give you an answer. And we were also trying to do the same thing 7 years back. I went to Rajasree trying to get some help on the AI models and things like that. SQUAD quickly transformed, I mean, I shouldn't use the word transform, but then the transformers or the BERT model came in and everybody started using BERT for QA. I'm pretty certain that, you know, people have talked about it in the last 2 days sessions. But what I'm trying to say is that there was GPT-1, there was GPT-2, and then there was GPT-3, all of which we tried to use over the last several years in my company as part of the product development that I did. And it was never useful because it always used to give out garbage. All the models, right? I mean, for a consumer, it was never useful. But with December 2020 is 21 is when I think I started using the latest GPT-3 models, in which they had the DALI and the code generator and the chat GPT and everything, which suddenly looked very interesting for the common man, because you could just go ask a question and you will get the right answer. Coming back to education, one of the problems that I always had in classrooms is that being an inquisitive person, I used to ask a lot of questions to teachers. And teachers used to get very frustrated after some time. They would say, don't be over smart. You know, I've given you enough answers. Now don't come back to me with more questions. That is one of the things that used to make me a bad student in the classes, is that I would ask more and more questions. So what I felt is that suddenly there is an avenue wherein I could ask any number of questions and there is somebody who would not complain and give me enough answers, right? With GPT-3, though, I mean, GPT-2, those answers was not right. But GPT-3, suddenly it looked like the answers were right. It looked like. Now, I'll tell you one simple example. This is where the bias is going to be a major problem. So I was actually talking to very senior executives in one of the calls. And I was just playing around with GPT-3 at that time. And I said, you know what, this is a school tool that has come out called GPT. And they said, oh, you have nothing else to do? You have no other work? You seem to be playing around quite a bit. Looks like Kerala government is giving you, you know, this thing for free, salary for free. You're playing around writing poems with GPT. I said, let me show you something, right? And I said, okay, write a paragraph about this particular person that I was chatting about. So suddenly there was this nice paragraph about that person which came out in front of me, which said that, let's call him A, right? A is a fantastic scientist. He has been doing extremely good work with science, and he has been, you know, doing breakthrough in this thing. And he's like, wow, this is so... And then he stopped. I said, you said, you wanted to say, oh, this is so right, right? And he's like, yeah, it looks nice. But that is where I had a problem. I suddenly realized that there was this angularity. Because one of the biggest problems that I've seen in AI in the past, and you have seen about the Microsoft story, and there were several such stories wherein people would come back with undiplomatic is the right word, I guess, or non-parliamentary, if I may use the Indian language, non-parliamentary words to describe a person or an event. So the negative skew, as we call it, or the negativity in the language or the image that is being generated. Is there a vulgarity to it? Is there a negativity to it, right? And I suddenly started looking at it and realizing that, the amount of negativity that comes out of this generated language is very, very, very small. Irrespective of whether who you ask about, it'll. So there is a positive bias. I realized that there is a heavy positive bias towards the language that is being generated. Now, suddenly I realized, oh my God, maybe he's not answering everything right. He's answering to my, satisfaction. Yes, I like what ChatGPT is giving me as an answer. But that might not be the right thing. It might not say, like a teacher says, it might not say the right thing, that the thinking that you're going is not in the right path. So, to answer your question, and I'll stop here, is that it gives me an excellent fact-finding mechanism. Okay, I can ask, what is the capital of, or write a paragraph about, and it'll give me excellent micro-learning material, because one of the things that people used to take to their exams as part of the plagiarism is the tund, which is the smaller snippets of what, what you want to write in the answer paper, right? That ethics is a big question. Actually, it will eventually become a big question. But that is generated very well by ChatGPT. So to learn something, my biology textbook, zoology textbook in my 12th standard was this thick. If you ask me, do you remember at least 10% of it? I don't. But ChatGPT gives me an excellent mechanism by which I'll be able to learn the gist of a certain thing. But the moment it comes to qualitative output, or let's say logical outputs, right, about how you should apply a certain theory onto your life, onto your job, I don't know how good is it. I have tried data sets and asked ChatGPT to say, go ahead and build a regression model. It has done that for me without a problem, right? I've asked ChatGPT to write poems, which is a fair job that it has done. I've asked DALL-E to create images. I haven't seen anything to my satisfaction, frankly speaking. I've tried several AI generation for creating mascots, logos, etc., which I was not able to. I'm still not able to use Mid-Journey because that's something that I need to spend a day and try and figure out. But the point that I'm trying to make to answer Arun's question is that it gives you a good micro-learning material to get an idea about a general scientific or a artistic or a historic fact. But anything beyond that, teaching is way beyond that, is what I believe, And yeah.
You are getting a gist of
A more accurate this thing. Google, you will still have to go and read through the website. But here, you don't need to read through the website. It is giving you a structured content, right? That is the way I see it. But I'm sure things will change. But I'll stop here.
Actually, see, we have been affected by virus, computer virus. People have created antivirus. And that war still continues. And that is why you have the cybersecurity as a specialization coming in. No? The same thing will happen with ChatGPT. You have Zero GPT today. Right? Anybody use Zero GPT? I don't know. Now that is what is something which is against ChatGPT. Right? So this kind of wars will continue, and that is not ethical, whatever it is. So this kind of things will continue as long as human beings exist in the world. And I do not know when are we going to have robots, science robots. Laboratories completely non-human, where the experiments are happening in a different form. I mean, ultimately, what is that? You wanted to do it very fast. You wanted to get the results very fast, but at the same time, that should be helpful for the human or the mankind. And that should be the motive. So in this process, ultimately, whatever I talk about ethics and things like that, this will be created, but somebody will. See, you have plagiarism software, turn it in and things like that. Why? Plagiarism will happen, will continue to happen. Yes, today also somebody was, there's no time to talk about all this. Some 9 people, famous people, have come out with a paper saying that room temperature, semiconductor, and 8 people have withdrawn their consent to the paper. Only 1 person remains in that, right? So this happens. This will continue as long as human beings are there. We don't have to worry about it. But we have to see. See, one point which I just wanted to ask is that, see, how can the economy of a country, economy of a state, be improved by making use of AI? This is what you have to discuss. How AI can be made use of. I mean, that should be the topic where, how you can improve the education using AI. Forget about, as long as human beings are there, these bad things will continue to be there. If you continue to discuss the bad things first, you will never succeed. This is what you have to remember.
Right. On that note, we'll start with the students as the biggest stakeholders, because it's going to be your world and your world with open AI, generative AI. How has your experience so far been? How do you use it in your learning process?
Sir, I have used it several times. Mainly, I use it to just summarize the English paragraphs and all, and to correct the grammatical errors and all. It does the task so well. And sometimes I use it to get answers of questions. But what it does is that it knows very much basics and expert stuff also. But in between, it makes some wrong thing or bluffing like that, and I will have to manually correct it, because I know how to do this question, and I just ask to check if whether ChatGPT knows how to perform the same task. I have yes, I have used it as a learning platform, but I know to do the question, and I just checks whether ChatGPT is as same as human. Yeah. And personally, I have corrected it 2 or 3 times. It gave a wrong answer. Then I just said this is a correct answer, and I explained it, and it said sorry. Yeah, it said sorry. Thank you for correcting me. And then I again asked the question from another account, but it again gave the wrong answer. It didn't study well. It takes some time. Yeah.
But try doing the same thing with one of your real life teachers. Correct them and see if you get a thank you or what happens to your internal marks after that. So about you, how was your experience so far been?
Okay, I have used it, I mainly used it for 2 purposes. One, at the time of exams, so I almost finished my entire syllabus over a day. I'm a guy like that. So what I did is, I take any, if it's, for example, SSD. I will take a book and I will give the drive link to the ChatGPT. And what does is, yes, it summarizes the stuff. So I will go through the question papers of last year question papers and ask the questions over there. So it will give the exact answers, and over 2-3 hours if I spend over there, I will get an exact clarity what's happening over that. So that's the one thing I did. Another favorable part I felt with ChatGPT is when I used the projects. For example, I have shortlisted around 20 scientific papers from 2021 to 23, but there are so many terms that we don't even understand, mathematical equations and stuff. Basically, my main project is based on blind source separation. So what I did was, I go to ChatGPT and asked it to summarize the stuff. So I will ask which model are you using, how is the layers being connecting out, and I can process in my mind and understand, okay, this may be the best decision to do, and such a way. Like there are so many shortcuts with ChatGPT that can, make you learn faster. Like I may not be an expert in SSD, but I can answer most of the questions in a surface level. The same for
Assessment, what we do, it's system which we have got to change. So that, I think this ChatGPT will enable the teachers to, you make use of different kinds of assessment tools. So that, that's again a development process. But
Yes, so I mean that needs to change now, because if you ask for a report kind of thing, that will very easily get generated. If you ask for summarizing, that will get done. So, ma'am, my question is from the Directorate of Technical Education point of view. Have there been any processes now started about revamping the assessment system?
No, we haven't done that. It's primarily because the engineering college, it is under university, so it has to come from the university. For diploma programs, we have just started with the final semester, how it can be fully based on an internship in a company, and then based on the subjects and the internship projects they are doing, how the assessment, hands-on, how the assessment can be done. So that is being done. Other than that,
What are your ideas about how to university can change the assessment?
no, it is, I think in multiple forums this has already been discussed. We speak about outcome-based education, and then we follow the same way of giving questions and correcting them, not being able to assess the outcomes completely in the evaluation process. The way we structure the curriculum, syllabus, everything is less than 50% of what transformation should happen in the student. It is mainly associated with how we engage with the students and how the learning process happens. There is teaching is one side, which is, but the learning is most important, and learning is for the specific outcomes. How can we measure those outcomes through specific tasks that are specified as part of the assessment process? Now, if we can clearly indicate and communicate these things to a model, probably a language, a foundation model, this will definitely help us by these techniques. That now it is interesting to listen to these students, how exactly they are using it, and if we can extrapolate these findings and then see how outcomes can be linked with the evaluation strategies, and then develop such systems, it will be interesting. And another thing I find is wherever we have very hard process flows, workflows, then how it can be integrated, such learnings to improve the process flow, be it in an organization or even in the teaching learning process. In the overall process, how can you have this integrated in the progression of the student in the learning progression at each stage? Can we have some mechanisms there, go back and correct? Those are all very interesting things to look at.
actually we should, my thinking is that we should actually discuss how we can make use of this AI for the economic growth of the state. This is where we have got to really make use of it. How do we revamp the whole administrative mechanism? See, still we follow the, we have in the offices 3 clerks, 1 superintendent, and things like that. See, what the clerk does, you have to understand. What he does is, once you give a paper there, he goes to what are the rules available with respect to that, whether this can be given or not. Why not the e-office or the DDFS be changed? You can do it. IC4s can do it. In the sense, how you can eliminate the clerk's job by giving all the information which are required for taking a decision by the officer through AI. And that is a challenge. So that is where we have got to really work on how to have the AI version of the e-office or the DDFS. See, these are areas where actually that will really make a change in the administration of the whole state, which will improve the economy of the state. This is where we have got to really think. How the scientific research, how do you automate the laboratories so that you are able to get the results much faster? Automate the laboratories. How do you make use of science robots? How do you make use of AI in that? I mean, AI in education. Education, I'll tell you, there is one complaint among the teachers who sit here is that their time is mostly used for administrative work. How can you make use of AI or whatever it is to solve that? And basically, I would say that every teacher here, when all are here, you are not interested to go for an invigilation work. Tell me or not? Anybody is interested to go for invigilation? Why not we have the technology employed? Why not we have the technology enabled one where no teacher goes to this one? Everything happens through technology. Will you agree? See, this is where changes will have to happen.
Talking about economy, I'll quickly come to Anoop. Generative AI probably has made it very much easier to start up now because you don't need multiple people. Can you just elaborate on that?
Yeah, I guess this is what Kuncheria sir was saying in the beginning. So one of the advantages that has happened greatly because of the advent of AI or Gen AI is it takes a little time to learn about something if you really want to learn it, right? And that aspiration needs to come from within. So if I want to do something, then Gen AI makes it absolutely easy to go and learn and do something, which means it is going to actually accelerate the amount of innovation that is going to come to the society. So drug discovery is a good example that you talked about. What ideally would take a couple of years for finding a new molecule for a certain condition, you could have possibly 5-10 different candidate molecules within a matter of a few months if you actually use all these AI tools properly, right? What would ideally take a Stark a couple of months to develop a new logo can be done within a day if you can actually combine the creativity of a few people with the right prompts and things like that. What would ideally take a lot of time to write code and develop an application with the new low-code platforms that are coming in, I might be able to build a small student registration or a workflow application within a matter of a few weeks. So it is going to tremendously accelerate the amount of innovation, if I may call it. If I want to actually go ahead, predictive governance, IT secretary is also here. Predictive governance and employment of AI in governance is something that we keep talking about all the time within the department. If we really need to make, ma'am, you were saying, some of these workflows totally automated, some of the clerical jobs totally automated, some of the invigilation works totally automated. All this becomes an opportunity for a startup, right? So whatever work people have been doing for the past 5-6 years on this AI models and all that stuff, that has all gone down the drain. But you have something that is working. Now my job or the innovation ecosystem of the state will have to find use cases within which this AI can be deployed and quickly come up with solutions. What would take ideally 10 years to transform the governance might happen within a matter of a couple of years, and things could be much faster. And that all of that is an opportunity for a startup. That is the way I look at it, Arun.
Thank you. Now coming back to the students, what is the ideal workplace or job that you guys visualize 10 years down the lane for you to work?
Sir, after 10 years also, ChatGPT, I don't think AI will not completely replace programmers and all. I just think it as a platform where they interact with the AI just to make their life easier. Instead, they are not fully dependent on AI. If a developer just ask for a code, then he will get the code from ChatGPT, and only he will just try to improve the code and just finally make it as a product. rather than just copying and copy pasting and just uploading it as a product. He just need to improve the output given by the AI and put on his own creativity in that code.
So you are seeing an AI supported workplace for you.
Yes, AI supported.
Actually, I don't think your predictions, AI can predict, but I would say that, see, there is a jargon called world of work, WOW. I don't know exactly. That means it keeps on changing. Every now and then, except the government offices. Probably. Sorry to tell. The world of work keeps on changing. That's why they make use of that phrase, world of work. So it keeps changing. You will be making use of new tools, new things, new technologies. So that, we don't want to drudgery of work has to be changed. The drudgery is a word which, we don't want to do repetitive jobs. Nobody is interested in doing a repetitive job. See, probably AI is best suited for face recognition. Why should a human being sit and look at the face and recognize? That will automatically done by. See, the major advantage of AI is such kind of things. And then the speech to text conversion and things like that. This is what is happening today. So we will be making use of all these things in our workplace. That's why I said world of work or something is a phrase which being used for that.
Okay, I agree with the part that workplace will change, but I don't think engineers will be replaced. I will say my experience, for example, I worked at 2 companies. One was called Abilitics. At first I was asked to create an LLM for cloud infra prediction. So what happened is, I thought it will be easy. Like, I have looked over the GitHub and I thought, okay, this is not something, it won't took that much amount of time. But what happened was, when I tried to implement stuff, ChatGPT won't tell you, or any sort of GPT systems, even I have subscription to GPT-4, but it won't tell you the secret recipe that makes out the software as a product. Okay? So that, I guess, it should be something from the human intelligence itself. Maybe at 10 point, like after 10 years, there will be GPT-6 or 7. But at that time, what's going to happen is, the amount of work that needs to be done by a single engineer, like the amount of work done by 10 engineers will be done by a single engineer. So the product will become much bigger, rather than what we see, like for example, we used to see recipe book apps when the Android was launched. But if you try to launch a recipe book app right now on the market, it will definitely fail. The reason is that it doesn't have any sort of outstanding features. So I guess that what's going to happen is, one single engineer has to work down what used to be done by 10 engineers.
Right. That is true. But what is the problem? You get your money, no?
Yes.
So
I'm saying.
So the economy is. You need work only 3 days and get the same salary.
That I don't think. But yeah.
That's how things have to be viewed.
Yes.
So that is where the startup thing will come into the play. So basically, coming are the world of entrepreneurs. Because before, I needed a lot of help to create a company. I needed designers. I'm talking about a software company. Designers, programmers, marketing, sales. A lot of these things can be now achieved by a very minimal human resources, if you use the right kind of tools that are available. So, if you have an idea wherein you want to start a company and make a business out of it, it becomes much easier for you to do so as opposed to the previous years. And that is going to create a lot of entrepreneurs, and those entrepreneurs are going to thrive, is what I personally believe.
Throughout the course of these last 2 days, one of the words that kept on coming was a bias, the built-in AI bias. So I want to ask Rajasree ma'am, how prepared we should be in the world of AI. Already it seems like it is biased towards the way the data sets have been covered. What can we do as a society to make sure that that doesn't become the norm later on? the more dependent we become on such systems.
Yeah, this is something which has been in existence for some time. It's not with the first things that I've come across was racial bias, which was very common in the United States, coming to bias. But it's very difficult to find out how these systems deal with it, you know, and it is not easy to trace also. In some of the cases when, say, for jobs and other things you apply, you don't even know how the systems which will be screening you or the systems which assess your abilities are tailor-made for incorporating these biases. So that is going to be a very big threat for society, and I'm not aware of any mechanisms where this can be found out, and this can be addressed. It's not very evident from the systems, because even in this models which we talk about in ChatGPT, in generative AI, how the model is built, how the tool is built, that is not known to us. If we have to make this explicit, like we acknowledge that it has been taken from this, and this is the architecture of the model. If you are not able to build that, it never becomes transparent. So that threat is always there, and you can't rely on any system that use AI as an engine for driving these kind of things to happen. So that is on this question. Then on the other thing that we were discussing on the governance part, there was an interesting report recently in World Bank labor reports which were saying that many of the tasks that we do in our offices which are language dependent is going to be replaced by ChatGPT systems. It is possible to do that. Around 63% of jobs can be reduced. That's how the latest World Economic Forum reports say on the nature of workplaces, which is language dependent. That is very important. That it will be like connecting files together, extracting information from files, then looking at workflows and bringing up optimizations in the workflows, giving rise to or leading to better governance and better outcomes of governance. All these are possible.
But I wanted to say one thing about what ma'am said. So this is about the evidence. Why is ChatGPT saying what it is saying? Is something that is unknown to us. So it's AI in a black box, as they call it, right? So that is where I am a little worried, and I keep telling this in all forums that I can about the AI and the generative AI, is that the top 4 or 5 companies of the world control all our digital assets. Everything that we do, everything that we ask, everything that we watch is being captured by 5 to 10 companies. And they decide how the humanity is going to be driven forward, which is a big, big threat for us as a human race. One of the things, I mean, this is an academic conglomeration of people, and one of the things that I would like to urge people to do is, A, we need to start thinking about open large language models, which are already in place. Maybe we should take something that is already available, like a Llama, and start working on it, and create an open source language model which will be used within a country or within a certain set of communities. One. The second thing that we want to do is to think about the vernacular possibilities of large language models, right? I mean, I don't know if Malayalam questions can be asked. I tried asking a few questions, I got junk as an answer. I reminded. Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, the model is not trained on a lot of Malayalam content or Hindi content and things like that. So the moment you actually create vernacular models and enable, let's say, a farmer to go and say that, how do I get a loan? Or a poor widow to go and ask, like, how do I make use of the social welfare schemes that are available? Those are some powerful use cases that can significantly transform the society. So 2 things I wanted to point out. A, it is about time that we start thinking about open source language models, which will help us understand why that is, it is saying what it is saying, right? Second thing is, we need to actually start thinking about the language and make it available for, the common man through vernacular models. 2 things that I want.
See, to summarize what I said is that I initially said that we should not be thinking about the negatives of ChatGPT or AI as whole. ChatGPT is only a few things. And how we can make use of AI in research, in education. These are the two things. I just said about drug, but above all, because all of you are engineers, if I tell you the development of new material is the need of the hour today, especially with battery technology and things like that. Maybe this is the best tool to find out that the models which you make use of AI is the one which can really help you to develop material where research has to happen. And that goes on like that in climate and things like that, even cancer detection, like where you have the scan images. Imaging is one area where this can be made use of in several areas. And getting into the governance where it can be suitably made use of so that the economy of the state can be improved to a great extent. That is where we have got to focus. And we should also be aware of the negatives and how to circumvent that, but that should not be given the prominence. This is why I initiated that the prominence should never be on the negatives, it should be on the positives. How positively it can be used, that is where we have got to really stress. Thank you.
I'd like to thank all the panelists who are part of this. I think we have evolved, at least in this last session, that the call for this group is to come up with open source, a need from our state side itself or from the country's side, that instead of allowing 3 or 4 companies to control the whole thing, it's time for the state and the people of the state to start thinking about how we can utilize this wonderful technology for the betterment. We also mentioned how it can be vernacular without bias. We already saw that the students are getting way ahead in terms of how they can use it. So they should also become warriors in this cause of going ahead. So thank you very much, all of you, for listening to us. And thanks to all the eminent panelists for being here and sharing the views. Thank you very much.